Welcome to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/VinArmani. Also on Twitter and Periscope. At Vin Armani is my handle there. We are proud members of the Activist Post Podcast Network, so you can check out all of our audio archives by visiting activistpost.com. Well, it's Monday morning, 10 a.m., and we are coming to you live from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. The show today is going to be the audience participation show. So you are the guest. We have some topics. We've had some questions that have come in over social media, but if you are on YouTube in the chat, then we will be taking questions from there. If you have questions, comments, suggestions for the show as it has now started to evolve, then we would like to have your participation. So if you're checking us out live, go ahead and pop on into the chat at YouTube, or you can send us questions or comments on social media. And by us, of course, I mean not just myself, but also my good friend, co-host and producer, Mr. Christian Reyes. Christian.
Good morning, Vin.
Good morning, sir. So, well, this is going to be the last show before we go on a little bit of a break. I'm moving to New Hampshire. Weirdly enough, with the timing as it was, we had to leave out of this studio anyway.
Crazy, right?
Right? The timing was just like right on point. So people can't see the studio portion looks the same, but the rest of the studio is being cleared out, and everything will be cleared out within the next week or two. So we're taking a little break while I move, and then we are sort of revamping the show a little bit and then coming back, and I'll be in New Hampshire, you'll be here, but hopefully that's temporary because we're going to try to get you moving out in that direction as well. So I thought that what we could do today would be get some people's input, maybe you and I talk and share our thoughts about moving through this journey. I think we're closing in at something like, I know it's somewhere in the range of 72 episodes. I think maybe the last one might have been 72, which is kind of a mystical number when it comes to cycles, right?
Interesting.
Well, it's like 12 times half of 12.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like it's half of 144, which is 12 times 12. It's a very mystical number, particularly because the 3-4 is very important to ancient civilizations, because if you have a triangle where one side is 3 and one side is 4 and the other is 5, then you know that you have a right angle.
Wow.
Yeah, so the 3-4-5 triangle is basically how ancient people had a right angle. They'd measure something out 3, 4, and 5, and they knew if they connected those three pieces that this angle would be a right angle. So
crazy.
That you got the 3 times 4 and 12 months in a year. The ancients said 12 planets, all of this. So 72 has always been very significant. So it's good that we're making.
It's really cool. Actually,
we're
really
sort of making this transition, and I think it's always good to look back. I mean, we started the show, and you know, my instinct in starting the show was really sort of a reaction to the seeing what was happening with the election between Trump and Clinton, and seeing that there was clearly a shift happening in our culture. And I think what's interesting is we've tracked that shift with this show in the last 72 weeks. And I think it's only been 72 weeks.
It feels like a lot longer, too, because the changes that have happened.
It's been so great, right? It's been insane. Like, what a 72-week period.
Dude, seriously.
I mean, we've seen the rise of all kinds of things that are here now that just were simply not ideas in the culture, you know. Technologies, certainly shifts in the culture. And I mean, our show went from being really a libertarian political show to really picking up and becoming a popular show within the crypto community. But I think a lot of that is that, you know, from the beginning, from the very first show, I said, well, there are 3 technologies that I believe are the things that are going to lead us to freedom. And the first one being cryptocurrency, first one being Bitcoin, primarily. And I think that's proving to be even more and more true. And especially in the last 2 weeks, as we've seen, man, I mean, really think about it. we've seen so much volatility and so much growth and change in that space. I mean, when we first started doing the show, so it was October 2015, and our first guest was Lynn Ulbricht. And I don't, where was Bitcoin at that point? It was in the hundreds of dollars. It wasn't even at
It wasn't even at 1,000.
Right? Because that happened in January of 2016.
That was rapid too. It went from hundreds to a couple thousand.
Wait, did we start this in 2015? No, 2016.
2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Was it? Is that right? October
I believe so,
2016.
yeah.
Yes, that's right. So it was 2017 that it went, like January, February that it went to 1,000. And then flipping into 2018, when it went in the wintertime, it went to what? 20,000.
Dude.
Imagine. And now it's back at 6,000 something, 7,000. And we saw the rise of Bitcoin Cash. We saw the schism and the scaling debate. It's crazy.
Crazy.
And then, CoinText, actually building a project out, launching counter markets, govern yourself, the book. And it's just like so much in that span of time. We've done so much.
Yeah.
And we've seen so much.
And I feel like it's going to be faster for us too as we progress through this. The creations will be faster, the projects will be faster, the experimentation of those things will be faster because we already know like kind of what we're dealing with.
Well, let's talk about fast. Let's talk about speed here, right? So, the idea being that there are no political solutions. There are only technological solutions, right? That's it. All the rest is propaganda. We launched CoinText in our public beta, which basically a country that we opened up at that time was South Africa. We launched it last week, the 27th, right? I believe that was last week.
Last week.
Last Tuesday. It hasn't even been a whole week. Dude, throw up this was yesterday or day before. Throw up this. Do you see BCH tweet?
Bike tweet?
Bike tweet. Throw this up. Bitcoin Cash South Africa, right? Our first beneficiary for the BCH for Bicycles campaign. He walks 15 to 20 kilometers to go to work. He received a bike and a phone where he received his first BCH transaction through CoinText. Thank you at Silver Algorithm, at Silver Agorism, at Sadie Shardy, Bitcoin Cash for everyone. Show this picture, if you got the picture, the bike photo. So these guys, the Bitcoin Cash Meetup South Africa, put together this, and it's just like, wow, so fast, right? They put together this campaign. They're giving people bikes.
Very cool, dude.
To get them to work. This dude was walking 20 kilometers. What's that? That's like 8 miles, something
Holy
like that.
shit.
Every day. Now he got a bike. This sort of direct activism, directly taking, and this is the free market at work. This isn't the state redistributing wealth. As we've always said, like, we're going to get a chance. It gives me goosebumps.
It's crazy, dude.
It gives me goosebumps. You can come back to us. We're going to get a chance to show that the free market is way more effective at even delivering charity, at even helping the poorest. Because you think about this situation, there is absolutely no bureaucracy there. It's a person who's like, we want to get a bike for this guy. It's this particular guy in this particular country.
It's amazing.
To send the call out is free, right? You send it out to the community. It's going to cost this amount. Here's the address. Instantaneously, people are able to send to that for pennies. And then they're able to turn that around and give it to the guy and give him a phone with CoinText already active on it. Onboard him into this new economy, right? So it's really, I mean, you talk about empowerment, direct empowerment. And they don't have to go through some NGO, some 501c3 charity. It's already untaxed. It's already not through the banks. It's already not through the government. And it's like, wow. The people who really want to do good. And the fact of the matter is, when people are like, oh, well, if the state's not around, like, how will people be fed? How will people have medical care? And it's like, hold on. You asking that tells me that there is a demand in the marketplace that the poorest people be fed, that the poorest have medical care, that we take care of our brothers and sisters. You are telling me that you have a demand for that simply by asking the question. If there's a demand and there's a free market, supply will appear. Period. That's how economics works.
Yeah.
So you say, is there a demand? Well, there's a demand. Like, who will build the roads? Well, is there a demand for roads? Yeah. Then somebody will build it. All you got to do is get out of the way.
Man, this is great. Because I had kind of a revelation yesterday, or it started a few days ago, but then I had it yesterday on a deeper level, and I started questioning. I started really thinking about the idea of, or the emotion or state of happiness.
Okay.
What is happiness?
Okay.
And what I found was really interesting, and it led me to really questioning also the phrase life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I started understanding a little bit better what happiness is. So a lot of people think that happiness is this thing that you go after. It's a constant state of something. And I think it's a little bit different for everybody. It's not necessarily cookie cutter because it is an emotion, but emotion is a temporary thing. Okay. But I found a pattern that happens before that trigger of happiness, of the happiness emotion. The pattern is simple. It's reward.
Yeah.
So what I was looking at is this idea of happiness not necessarily being a state of constant emotion, but a trigger emotion through rewarding.
Well, I mean, so you notice that it's not the right to life, liberty, and happiness. It's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Right.
Because, and so he's actually taking this from, it's actually from John Locke. So it was life, liberty, and property was Locke. But then there was another essay that Locke did where he talked about, it's basically how do you know what's good? And what is the greatest good, right? That's always the question, because particularly collectivists will want to say, oh, well, we're doing it for the greater good.
Right.
But what is our greatest good? And our greatest good is the pursuit of that reward.
Right.
And it's this kind of idea that we understand that if you're not cynical, right? And this is one of the big problems, I think, with politics and when people view things through a political lens and through a sort of the lens of the media propaganda about how the world works, as opposed to just stopping, looking around, and seeing what are people pursuing? Just people that I meet. What are they after? What would make them happy, right? For their families to be secure and safe, taken care of, healthy, right? Able to find interesting and meaningful things to do with their day. That's it. Most people are not after power or controlling other people. That's 0.001% of people truly are rewarded by that. Most people don't want that. Most people are happy enough to just spend time with friends, doing things that they find interesting, having fellowship with others, pursuing their own hobbies and interests, being in environments of beauty, right? Pushing themselves, if they're a little more ambitious, pushing themselves to do new things, or just being able to relax.
For some people, it's total calm, total stillness,
right? They want to pursue that, and it's like, that's what you have a right to pursue. That's what he's talking about.
Well, also too, I started really questioning life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like, what does that actually mean? Well, let's break down what is life. What does that mean? Well, it means a lot of different things for, it could mean 1,000 different things. But the basic concept, if you were to simplify that, it means to expand yourself.
I like that. Okay.
Or the opposite would be to contract or to shrivel up.
That would be death, right?
Right.
A lack
Right.
of motion,
Yeah.
no motion, yeah.
Liberty is freedom. So the freedom to expand, the freedom
Right.
to, and then the pursuit of happiness, which this is where I started thinking of, like, if happiness is a reward mechanism that happens in the body, I think what is really, for me personally, it's the creation of happiness.
Yeah.
So life, liberty, and the ability to create happiness, to do things that why do people get so happy when they give? Because they're rewarding themselves.
Oh, it's a huge reward. Well, we're social animals.
Yeah.
Right? And not just so there's two rewards, right? So there's the reward of helping another person directly. And then there's also the reward of the social proof of you as someone who helps others,
Yeah.
right? So there's a dual reward. There's the reward that you get, and there's the reward where you're appreciated by others for doing that. Both are powerful and both lead to people helping, right? Because we like to recognize and reward people who help other people. It's so important when you think about what separates a free person from a slave is that they have the maximum amount of time to pursue happiness. Just that they have the bandwidth to do it. And that there aren't impediments. And I think, this brings us, we had actually Ox from Liberty Mastermind podcast, shout out to those guys, asked a question, audience question. And if people in the audience, if you have questions, comments, you want to jump into the chat room, you can.
Yeah, there's definitely some questions popping up.
Cool. Ox had asked about, he had said, can you guys talk a little bit more about your feelings and experiences with entrepreneurship? And I think that this is directly related to what the pursuit of happiness is. And in thinking about this, we're coming into a time, I would say our grandparents, let's say our grandparents' generation. Well, we are both children of entrepreneurs. Your father's an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Mine as well. So I think for many, many generations, it really sort of was a family sort of thing. Like if you came from a family of entrepreneurs, you'd be an entrepreneur. And if you didn't, then you probably wouldn't. And starting with our parents' generation, it was much more about going to work. That was the corporatization, really, of the West. And going to work for a corporation. And this idea that, you could actually start working there when you were 15. Maybe this is our grandparents' generation.
Right.
Start working there when you're 15, and you could actually end up retiring from there. You start out in the stock room and end your career there as a vice president and get a gold watch and a pension and all that, or go to work for the government, same sort of idea. That's not working anymore.
No.
And so many more people are realizing, and there are so many more opportunities to be an entrepreneur. We were just talking about Pootie Pie, Well, content creators, sure. I mean, we are content creators. There's virtually no barrier to creating content at this point. And you could be selling that content. There's with crypto especially, there's almost no barrier to any sort of entrepreneurial behavior. But what's interesting is there still is this old mode of people thinking, oh, I want to start a business. So what's the first thing that you do? And look, we both have done it in both sides. I mean, you could be like, okay, I'm going to incorporate, then go down, do all this registration, blah, 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 get whatever licenses and do this and that and the other. You'll be out thousands of dollars before you've even done anything.
Yeah.
Anything. If you're going to go the sort of old school way. Or you could just be like, you know what? let me just start doing the business now, and I'll just take crypto. I don't even need a bank account. Let me do it now. And you can be up in hours with your business and just start doing it. And I think that when you approach entrepreneurship, and I mean, you could give your thoughts on this, but for me, it's always just about seeing an opportunity to create value for other people, seeing something missing in the world that other people want, and seeking to create it just from the pursuit of happiness because it makes me happy.
Right.
And I get a great, like that seeing that picture in South Africa,
Dude,
and
I can imagine.
seeing like, wow, I built that.
Yeah.
Like they're
There's
using
no-
something that I built to help this dude, like that I built from so far away to have that sort of impact. It's like, boom, you talk about a dopamine hit.
Seriously.
Like you talk about motivation to
Yeah.
continue to do shit. It's like, wow, I'm helping people.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what drives me. Again, I know that if I'm building something that people value, you can't be broke with a pocket full of diamonds. If I'm building something that's of value, I don't need to worry. Money and resources will come my way, and if things get rough, the worst case scenario is you reach out and you say, hey, I can't continue providing this service if y'all don't help me out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you see whether or not the market really needs you there or not. And then if not, you go on and build something else.
Yep.
I mean, what are you've definitely spent the last, 3 years really exploring entrepreneurship. What have been your lessons?
Yeah, it's been actually, so let's call it entrepreneurship for sure, but self-development too, about 5, almost 6 years. And what caused that for me was a severe amount of pain. So going through a really hard time. And then I said, enough is enough. I want to do something different. And so I got into entrepreneurship, and and I don't think this will ever change. It's a process that is constantly getting improvements, getting faster, learning, experimenting, executing, kind of all those things put into one thing. But I guess if I was to sum up, like, if you wanted to become an entrepreneur, and how do you become an entrepreneur, and how do you become an entrepreneur that's passionate and also can reach high levels, or the highest level, let's say, the way to do that would be to fall in love with the process. Don't go for the destination. Don't even look at, like, I know you have to measure results,
Of course.
but just fall in love with the process, and everything else will fall into place. Like, I don't think I've really even definitely haven't hit the level where I want to achieve as an entrepreneur. I don't even think I've really hit my stride yet, but I know I love the process. And if I continue to love the process and be passionate about it, like, there's been times where I've felt differently
Sure.
temporarily, but I love the process so much. It's like I almost want to say addiction, but it's like a I don't even know how to explain it. It's my thing, it's me. It's in my blood. So,
Well, see, I think there's almost nothing that you can do for a decade and not be a master at it.
Right.
And it takes that long. I mean, I started my first DBA of my first business was 20 years ago, and dude, I feel the same way. Like, I don't even feel like I've hit my stride as an entrepreneur, but I've built companies and sold them to other companies. I've built successful businesses. I have this metric that's the R&B metric, rent and bills. I figure you're a successful entrepreneur if you could pay your rent and bills off just working for yourself. That to me, that you're in rarefied air. But getting to that point is, I think, for most people who are entrepreneurially driven, is not enough. And it's because you reach that point and you realize, like, oh man, I could build so much more useful stuff, if I had the capital. And so it's just, it's like you say, falling in love with the process. And I always use the metric of, would I do this for free?
Yeah.
Like, would I be willing to, or even more so, would I be willing to work a full-time job so that I could do this in only my spare time? And would I be willing to devote, let's say, another 20 hours a week to it? If the answer is no, you're not passionate enough about that thing. Wait until you find something that you're that passionate about. Because oftentimes that's exactly what it takes to build a business.
Yeah. Seriously.
I mean, oftentimes, the businesses that I've built that have been successful, one of the reasons that they've done well is because I've been able to self-fund them. And one of the ways I've been able to self-fund them is by actually like working a full-time job just while I'm building the business, just to have the capital. You know what I mean?
I actually I did an art piece for Craft House. It's in my brewery. And I wrote a quote. I want to pull it up because it describes that exactly. So the art piece, it's basically a guy. He's kind of like, he's underneath the clock, and their theme is cuckoo clocks.
Yep. Okay.
And it's got a clock, and the clock's like spinning real fast, and it has a bunch of zeros around the clock. And the quote, it just when you were saying that, it just reminded me of it. The quote is, let's see here.
Where is it? Dead air.
Yeah.
Dead air.
I gotta find the post. That's why. I'll get to it. I'll find it. And
Okay.
Get to it.
I mean, maybe find it during the break.
Yeah.
We can always come back. Are there some questions in the chat room?
Yeah. So here we go. So we were actually kind of answering one of the questions that was on Twitter, the entrepreneur.
Yep.
One. That's
Yep.
That's what we were talking about earlier. So CryptoCast. Hey Vin, what are your thoughts on regulations in the crypto market? On the one hand, it will encourage institutional money to come out, but on the other hand, it will free market.
So thoughts on regulation in crypto. Well, my thoughts on regulation in crypto are my same as my thoughts on regulation in anything, right? It's the use of state power to steal, period. And so first, from a moral and ethical standpoint, I do not have the right to violently restrict the peaceful behavior of another adult, period. And every regulation is backed up, because every law, down to the smallest of laws, is backed up by the imposition of state violence, and actually is backed up by the threat of death. By, we will kill you if you don't obey. And what do I mean by that? Let's just walk it through. Let's take the simplest and smallest of laws, right? So let's say it's something like having your tail light is out, right? Tail light out is what? It's fix-it ticket. It's like, if you even get a ticket for it, and not just a warning from a police officer, if you just get a ticket, it'll be like, what, maybe you pay $50 and you show proof that it's been fixed. Okay, so let's say your tail light's out. You're driving down the street. You see the cop lights go on behind you, all right? You stop. Let's say in this case you stop. Cop comes up to your window, says, license or registration. If you just say no and refuse, they're going to say, step out of the car. If you refuse that, they're going to open the door, or if you've got the window closed, break your window, so damage your property, and then assault you. They're going to pull you out of the car, and they're going to handcuff you, and they're going to kidnap you. That if any other person on the street who wasn't wearing a costume was to do this behavior, it would be felonious. Imagine if some person on the street just walks up to your car, opens the door, violently drags you out, shackles you, and throws you in the back of their vehicle.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's a Class A felony. False imprisonment, assault. Never mind if they're carrying a weapon, a gun on them at the same time. Then it's assault with a deadly weapon.
Yeah, I remember we went to lunch right before we did the show, and you were breaking down the idea of the costume, and I was like, dude, I've never seen it like that before.
That's all it is a costume.
It's just a costume. Imagine if somebody was dressed up in a clown suit and went and did that. You know what I mean? Like,
so imagine, so that's all if you don't violently resist, right? But if the scenario happened and somebody was just to accost you in that way, you have a right to self-defense. Mm-hmm. Now, if you try to defend yourself against the police to stop them from, now you're resisting arrest, and that alone can be enough to wind up with them killing you, suffocating you, whatever, trying to restrain you, happens all the time, right? Or pulling out a taser or mistakenly a gun and shooting you, right? Because you're resisting that attack. Or if you try to run, or if you... So the fact of the matter is that every single law, the reason that it exists, down to the smallest of regulations, is backed up by the threat of your imprisonment, mm-hmm. which is your kidnapping, and theft from you, which is a fine. And if you don't, you don't acquiesce to either one of those, potentially your death.
It's crazy. It's
do it or we'll kill you. Mm-hmm. So how do I feel about regulation of crypto? Here's the thing. They're going to try to regulate it.
Yeah.
This is a technology. It's a cat and mouse game, and there's such value. See, this is where they've shot themselves in the foot. With people paying 40% of their income to taxes, when people realize that they can keep 40% of their income, mm-hmm. do you realize how much money that is?
Oh, dude, that's a lot
what
of money.
The economic incentives around the world are for being able to avoid being stolen from by the government by simply changing your behavior in terms of currency? And they think regulation is going to work? No, it's not going to happen. And it's not good for anyone. Mm-hmm. And anyone who says that regulation is somehow good for cryptocurrency is either one, asleep, or is two, a psychopath. Mm-hmm. That's it.
I think they're playing it pretty smart in terms of regulations. I think what they've done to sabotage it has been probably the best thing that they can do.
Oh, they're showing their hand.
Yeah, psychological sabotage and getting people to hate it. That's probably the best thing that they can do. The regulation is really not.
Oh no, we're in a time of memetic warfare now. Like we're seeing it, right? The state laws and regulations is way less effective than controlling people's minds with memetic warfare. We got any other questions on there?
Yeah, so that was great.
My allergies are going crazy.
Let's see. Just people coming.
Anything good?
Question from the community is, so this is from Dr. D711.
Okay.
When do you think Bitcoin Cash will detach itself from Bitcoin BTC? So when BTC goes down, will BCH not be affected? Thank you. That was a question.
Well, right now the problem is that, okay, so this is a twofold answer that I'm going to give. The first is that the only measure that we have right now when it comes to price is fundamentally the worldwide sort of global overall measure is coming right now from CoinMarketCap. Mm-hmm. And it's an average of exchanges. And the issue with that is that BTC is the reserve currency of the world of cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. So when we are taking these numbers, the numbers that they are taking is specifically from these markets, and most of that has been speculation. Mm-hmm. So as long as the currency pairs are almost exclusively BTC. So there's currency pairs that are BTC to just about any other currency. So when BTC drops, the overall value of everything. Currency that it trades on a pair with it drops in terms of US dollar value. See, this is what's important to understand, right? Mm-hmm. Even if the ratio, which is what you pretty much see across the board, That's why the charts all look the same. So the ratio of trading BTC to BCH is relatively stable, right? It's like basically 0.1.
Yeah.
Right? So it's 10 times less, and it's pretty much stayed stable. So that's fine. That pair hasn't changed. But as soon as you change the US dollar pair against BTC, since BCH is being calculated in terms of its BTC exchange rate, and then they're modifying that by the US dollar to BTC exchange rate, it's connected.
Yeah.
It's connected, right? So what has to change is the demand for BCH as versus BTC. The difficult part about that is that we're not having legitimate trade of both of those in the way that you would say, yen to dollars.
Right.
In the way that you would Mexican pesos to dollars, where there are actual windows where I travel to Mexico, I have dollar bills, US dollars, and I actually go and I make an exchange for pesos because I have an actual demand for pesos for the sake of pesos as a medium of exchange.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's not there. Now, BTC has BCH, I should say, Bitcoin Cash, as we're seeing, is now trying to have that means of exchange. Then we're going to see BCH measured against real goods. We're going to see real demand. It's going to take a while. I actually think that the US dollar value is it's very, very misleading right now in the world of crypto, and it's just useful for speculators. It's going to be very different when, because you could have an insular, it's just a token. It's just a token. You can have an insular community that uses Bitcoin Cash, that uses the BCH blockchain, and they can value it at whatever they want. That's the key. Now, if you had valued it at significantly different, then there's the possibility for arbitrage against an exchange. But what people have to understand is that it's only because the arbitrage on those exchanges is possible that you would have to, within a community, use it at that sort of price point. But we're going to see. It's going to take one of these currencies becoming a real unit of account where people are valuing goods in cryptocurrency as opposed to US dollars or as opposed to fiat, and they're accepting nothing but cryptocurrency. So to answer the question, long answer, but to answer the question to come full circle, it's going to take an end-to-end ecosystem that is crypto, meaning when we will see a decoupling of any currency from BTC is going to be when there is a complete ecosystem that goes from merchant selling goods for, let's say it's BCH, for BCH, paying their employees in BCH, and those employees purchasing their needs from merchants also in BCH. That when it never leaves the blockchain, and when you have a critical mass of that, it will decouple. It will decouple itself. Until then, it's just the natural economics of it. They have to stay relatively, not even they have to, but because people will be constantly trying to do arbitrage, the number will keep itself. And now with futures markets and whatnot. So
interesting.
Questions? Let's see.
Yeah. So question. Let's see. A lot of statements, comments too. Okay,
comments are good too if people have comments about the show.
Okay, cool. Nathan Hurt.
Okay.
Reality is an infinite creative space. There's a way to get what you want without taking what someone else needs. That's what they say. That's what he says. Okay. Connor Murray. Do you think Craig Wright is Satoshi? If so, is his story the most magic untold story of our time? aside from the fact that his story isn't over yet.
Oh boy.
That's from Connor Murray.
I know who Connor is. I know Connor. Do I think Craig Wright is Satoshi? Wow, I really don't want to answer that, but let me answer it in a different way. I don't think it matters whether or not Craig Wright is Satoshi in terms of what Craig is doing right now. I think that there are a great many examples in history, even if Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto. There are a great many examples in history of people who have had the kernel of an idea and yet have not been the appropriate person to carry that idea beyond just idea and into implementation. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very, very common, as a matter of fact, it happened to Steve Jobs, for even founders of great companies to, at a certain point, have to step away as CEO, because what it takes to found something and what it takes to lead something that is established and to lead it into the next phase are two completely different things. I don't think that the most important thing, and I think a lot of people in the community will agree with me on this, I don't think that the most important thing right now is new, and even Craig has said this, is new innovation in Bitcoin. I think it's adoption. And I think that it's only after we have a critical mass of adoption of cryptocurrency and average everyday people actually using it that we will actually know what needs to be innovated. Because right now, it's just engineers following things that they feel passionate about or they find interesting, which is how you end up with shit like Lightning Network.
And the culture and everything is going to change so much that who knows what idea will work even in the future, or something that's created right now may not work in the future. Something that's created right now may be the biggest thing that's needed for the future, but it's kind of hard to tell when we're in hyper evolution, when we're moving so fast.
Which goes to the point of what Bitcoin was when Satoshi wrote the white paper and what Bitcoin is now are two completely different things. So does it matter? Does it matter? How would it change? How would it change anyone's relationship with Craig?
Right.
How would it change anyone's relationship with Craig's work, right? With N-Chain and with what they're doing if Craig was Satoshi or was not Satoshi? There has been so much that has been added in technologically at this point to Bitcoin and to just cryptocurrencies in general that who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? I mean, I've spoken on this before. For me, it's just like, I think it's a moot point. If Craig is Satoshi, he's either unable or unwilling to prove that he is. So I think it doesn't matter. And the one thing that I will say about it is this, is if Craig doesn't want to be Satoshi, I think he needs to be a little more, and this is just, Craig can do what he wants to do. This is just my own personal opinion about how I would handle it. If I didn't want to be Satoshi, whether I was or wasn't, if I wanted people to not, if I was going to say I'm not Satoshi, I would simply say I'm not Satoshi.
Yeah.
I'm not Satoshi, whether I was or not. And if I was Satoshi and I wanted people to think that I was Satoshi, I would say I am Satoshi, and I would prove it in a way that people would be satisfied with it. I think that I personally do not like the idea of having a sort of wink and nod in this regard and letting people fill in the blanks because you reap a benefit without taking the risk, right? You reap a benefit from people who want to be faithful, and I think that I know that it has the potential to corrupt an individual. It's a stroke, it's an ego stroke. And that's dangerous because it triggers off those rewards, those dopamine rewards.
Right.
And you start playing this little wink and nod game, not even because you're meaning to, but just because you get rewarded when you do. And so I would just say, if Craig wants to be Satoshi, he should say, yes, I'm Satoshi, and prove it. What I've heard him say is that he doesn't want to be Satoshi. And so then I think I'm going to respect him in that and say, Craig is not Satoshi.
Cool. Connor says agree, well said.
What's that?
Connor said agreed, well said.
Appreciate that.
Cool, okay, so lift the veil, Nathan Stoltman.
Yep, Nathan. What's up, Nathan?
The stock market is down another 500 points today. Do you think the bear market in stocks will eventually pump cryptos? Was I right about Tesla?
So Nathan hates Elon Musk. Was he right about Tesla? I don't know what he thinks of it. He thinks Tesla's going to fail. I don't think that's the case. I would not bet against Elon Musk. And I don't think that, especially when you have when you're as interwoven now as he is with the state, I think he's got very little chance of failing. I don't think Tesla needs to be profitable to do what Elon wants it to do. Amazon didn't turn a profit for the first 10 years that it operated. And no one's going to say that Amazon is unsuccessful, right?
Yeah.
As for the stock market being down, well, that necessarily means that the dollar is strong. That's what that means. Because stocks are priced in US dollars, if you're talking about the New York Stock Exchange. So when $1 buys you more Apple stocks, that means that Apple stock's price is down. Well, same thing goes for crypto. So right now the dollar's strong. All of that could turn around in a heartbeat if we go to war.
One of Trump's tweets.
It's looking good, but I think it's the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
And we're going through a paradigm shift right now.
Massive
Paradigm shift. It's stocks down, again, means dollar up. Dollar up, as long as we're going by this USD valuation, means crypto down. The entire promise of crypto is that it will level the scales against this fiat dollar, because dollars are inflationary. Fiat money is inflationary. It loses value over time. And all things being equal, if you have a currency that's losing value over time and a currency that's staying stable, just against it makes it go up, right? So, no, stock market down means crypto down, because they're both in relationship to the dollar. Now, if stocks start to be traded in crypto, right? If I can buy Ford stocks directly with Bitcoin Cash, well, then we'll see what stocks do next to crypto. But now this is all just about the dollar. So dollar's strong. Dollar's not going to stay strong.
No.
That's what and that's what people need to, I think that's, what's missing in the whole hodler meme is the reason we're holding, the reason we got in for the first place, the reason why people are invested in this is because we know that fiat is inflationary, because we know that over time the dollar loses value. Just stay with the deflationary, use that instead, and over time it will gain against the inflationary currency. Simple economics. But if you got in December and you're talking about right now, inflation doesn't happen that fast on the dollar. It's over years and decades. It's not 3 months. So we had great volatility. The overall traffic is way down on these blockchains. That's good. Hopefully, because it was unlike before, it was a cultural phenomenon, the speculative bubble. I'm glad that now the speculators are shook out.
Yeah.
I'm glad that now the Lambo boys will be a lot more cautious about calling spikes in price. There'll be a lot less irrational exuberance. This is the pop of the bubble. Like this is a pop of the bubble. It was at 20,000, it's at 6,000.
Right. And
in 3 months. That is a bubble popping.
the speculative bubble.
The speculative bubble. If you go back to the tech boom, which I was a part of, I got to see how money was flying around. I got to see how people were valuating their companies. And then you had the bubble pop, and the companies that were just bullshit vapor vanished. And look what came out of it.
In other words,
the internet came, the real internet came out of it.
The free market did its thing. And
always.
Yeah.
The suckers got shook out. Because, and what the most important thing, what people don't realize, what the most important thing of that is it changes the signal to noise ratio, right? The signal that we're looking for is innovation, utility. What projects or businesses are going to move this thing forward toward this overall goal of mass adoption of cryptocurrency, right? When there was the speculative bubble, you had the ICOs, you had these new blockchains coming up, but 99% of that was noise. Not innovative, with no utility, most of it vaporware, most of it just white papers, and then people throwing money at it because, oh, you can't lose, just like the real estate bubble. But see, prices, as Austrian economists know, prices contain information. This is it. The free market is an information system. But when you have high noise in there, it's hard to pull the signal out. Now the noise is down to a minimum. It's down to a murmur. And what's coming through is signal, signal, signal. Because the only people who want to play now and who want to build and innovate now in a bear market are the people who truly believe in the long-term vision of this thing.
Right. Awesome.
And this is the time in a bear market is when you get the most technological innovation. It's when you get the building of companies and particularly the funding of companies that are truly, because you have to stick out. A white paper isn't going to get it for you anymore like it did in November.
This is really interesting. And there's what's the word? Connection here with everything too, even entrepreneurship. Like if you're an entrepreneur and you're failing and you're failing and you're failing, or you're working out, you go to that last pump and you're like, oh shit,
big.
Then you push. That's when the most growth happens. Same thing with this too.
Well, I'll tell you a story. This is my own personal, and this has happened so many times in my life, but this one is so poignant, right? I started this Latin urban live streaming radio and video station this is like 2006, right when like reggaeton was like super huge in the Latin communities around the US, and there was kind of I think that there was a wave of young Latinos who were just coming into their 20s and getting some buying power, and this second generation and whatnot, particularly not just Mexicans but from other places. A lot of Puerto Ricans, a lot of Salvadorans, Hondurans, Guatemalans, whatnot. And so I started this with a business partner, Mexican guy, and it became very, very popular. And, I was coming out of the pocket. Yeah, I was working a 40-hour-a-week gig, but I was coming out of the pocket, to the tune of at least $500, sometimes $1,000 a month to keep this thing up and running with the servers and everything. Live streaming was very, very expensive to do 10, 12 years ago.
Right.
As compared to now, we're doing it for basically free. People take that for granted, right? But I've been in streaming media since 1998, basically. That was the first company that I was a part of, DJ Union, that was live streaming. So I've been doing this shit for a long time.
Right.
And I built this company, and I remember it was just this, it was great. It was cool, but it was coming out of my pocket. And, we had a lot of great people working with us and everything. And I remember finally just reaching a point, and I remember driving home from my office and on a call with my mom, and I was like, I'm thinking this is going to be the last month for Perreo Radio. I'm thinking this is the end. Like, I think we're going to shut it down. It's costing me money, and I could be doing other things with it. And it's been a great run. It had been maybe a year and a half, and it's been a great run and it's been fun, but it's just like, it's taken up so much time and money. And what's interesting is just before I had left my office, I had answered an email from a guy, no idea who he was, who said, hey, I just wanted to see if I could set up I'm from Rebel Crew Films, and I wanted to see if I could set up a meeting to talk to you about how maybe we could do something with your company. And I figured, it's like an advertiser, or maybe he wants to come on the show to promote one of his films or something. And I said, okay, yeah, I'd be free for a meeting at this time. So, and that was minutes before I was talking to my mom, telling her I was going to shut it down. And so he was like, oh, well, could you meet tomorrow? Could you meet our CEO? And so I was like, sure. And went over and met the CEO and sat there, and we're talking for like 10 minutes. He's asking me about the company, and I'm like, what is this meeting about? And he goes, oh, I want to buy your company.
Oh, shit.
And they were a DigiCorp, a publicly traded corporation. And within, 2 weeks, the company was sold. Everything was filed with the SEC, and then went on to do a whole bunch of stuff with that company, came on board. And it's interesting that it's always that last rep. It's that last month, right? That's what it is. It's when you've reached the point where you're just like, I can't do this anymore. That's the point. If you're willing to push right past that, right past that is where it's at. Right past that moment is the reward. And life is all about, I say, if you want to grow as a consciousness, life is all about learning to be honest with yourself about when that point really is. Like, can I go further than this? Can I push myself further? Is it possible? If the answer is yes, push farther. And if the answer is no, then know that if you can make that answer yes, that's where the reward is.
Man, that's great. That's great.
Let's go to break, and then we'll come back. We could find some more questions. I want to see the quote that you put up on the thing.
There's quite a few questions.
Quite a few questions?
Yeah.
Good. Well, we've got another hour. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you, listeners, and I'm loving talking about this stuff. So go ahead, Christian. Let's go to break.
Welcome to the dawn of a new era. The age of cryptocurrency is here, and it's changing how we spend and think about money. Just think, VisaNet handles 150 million transactions every single day. That's millions of people at ATMs pulling out cash or swiping their cards. But what if there's a more convenient and secure way of accepting payments? Join us in Hong Kong to find out how you can revolutionize transactions for today and the future.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Nguyen, CEO of Enchain Group, and your host for this one-of-a-kind payments and Bitcoin commerce event. We're bringing together the biggest minds in Bitcoin to show us a better way to accept payments and send money.
Presentations from Jihan Wu, CEO of Bitmain, the world's foremost Bitcoin mining hardware. Roger Ver, the first major investor in Bitcoin startups and CEO of Bitcoin.com. And Enchain's chief scientist, Dr. Craig Wright, as well as many more movers and shakers in the field. Find out how you can integrate blockchain into your business by registering for the CoinGeek.com conference today.
The spirit of art. The spirit of technology. The spirit of individuality. Baby Vodka. An ultra-premium spirit conceived by Vin Armani. Handcrafted and distilled in Las Vegas by master distiller George Rotz. Each bottle, a celebration of the individual, custom engraved and hand-signed by the creators. Each element blending in harmony to create a beautiful experience beyond imagination. Baby Vodka, the spirit of Vegas. Created by Vin Armani. Tailored by Christian Rays. Available for purchase exclusively with cryptocurrency at babyvodka.com.
Welcome back to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. We are proud members of the Activist Post Podcast Network, so you can check out all of our audio archives by visiting activistpost.com. So we are in the listener participation and appreciation episode. If you'd like to join us, if you have a question or comment, we are taking those. You can jump into the chat room at YouTube. Perhaps you could ask them on social media if we can jump in. I'll try to jump in and see if I can grab things off Twitter and Facebook if you want to do it that way. But I think chat would be much better. Just wanted to let you know that my Code from Go seminar series the registration is open now. Classes start April 25th. We sold out the last seminar series. I'm only taking 75 people. This is I really do believe that this is the best course that's out there. It's going to take you from absolute zero coding knowledge, and we're going to walk you step by step until at the end you will be able to design and build and start in on your own projects. I'm very proud of being able to put this together. I'm so proud of the students already who have completed the course and honored by the praise that has come back from them. I do believe that this is one of the greatest gifts that you can give to yourself or to your kids. Quite a few people sign their teenage children up. We're coming into a world where software rules the world. Software is eating the world. And even just having an idea of how software is built is going to give you a better understanding of your world, not to mention putting those diamonds in your pocket. And of course, you can't be broke with a pocket full of diamonds. So you can find out more information at codefromgo.com. You can go and register right now. So Christian, we are back.
Yep.
Actually, did you find any good questions in there?
This is a good question to complement the Code from Go.
Okay, let's do it.
This is from Matthew Shea.
Okay.
Tips on starting your career in coding.
Well, the question is, can you code? Right? That's the first thing. So here's what I would say. Here's my advice of having worked in teams for many years and also having been, as a lead developer, heavily involved in making choices about who to hire. Two things. First, you should have a portfolio. Get something that you're passionate about and build out a project. Can be simple. Build it out end to end, not just code. Working code. If you're a front-end guy, build out a front end. If you're a back-end guy, build something out that doesn't have a slick front end on it. The people who are hiring you will understand if they're hiring you for back-end. Demonstrate something. Mm-hmm. Demonstrate that you can be self-guided and self-motivated. This is very important. My career was spent in startups, so there was much more emphasis in that regard put on your ability to learn new skills and to adapt than to having book knowledge and being able to describe design patterns and all of these things. You're going to learn those, but that's a lot less important for startups. It's very hard as a beginning coder to get remote jobs. So if you do want to be in that field, you're going to need to be in a metropolitan area, large metropolitan area. LA is great. Obviously the Bay Area is great, but the competition is serious in the Bay Area. Boston, also pretty serious. You've got MIT. But any major city that has over 1 million or so people, then what you want to do, and maybe this will even help you decide which city, is there are tech recruiters. So going to, just type in technology or software recruiters, technology headhunters, some that come to mind who are still constantly contacting me, so I know that they're around. There's JobSpring, WorkBridge Partners. There's a lot of these companies, and submit your resume to them.
Awesome.
If you put it up on Monster or you put it up on any of these, they're going to find it anyway. Let them do the work. And when they're going to start setting you up with interviews, and that's really the best way. That's one of the coolest things, is that you can start out with an agent before you can even code, but have that portfolio. And the other thing is, we were as likely to hire someone onto the team with whom we were a personality fit, but maybe they weren't the most competent out of all of the coders that we were interviewing. Because you're working in small teams in high stress situations where I think one of the most valuable things that you can have is to be humble, because you have to know your code will be wrong. Your code will have bugs in it. It will. That's part of being a coder. And members of your team will be correcting your code, and you'll be correcting their code, and you'll be sitting and talking through architectural decisions. How do we do X? How do we do Y? Being able to forcefully argue for your point, but not or your way of doing things, but not being so married to it that you're unwilling to acquiesce to what overall the team decides, is very important. The last extra ego on a team really does nothing. So I always tried to operate when I was working in those teams, and still, as I work in teams, I would always prefer to do the right thing than to be right.
Right.
It's always, and you have to really walk into it with a pure heart in that regard. If you are willing to say, it is less important to me to be right than it is for me to do the right thing, you're exactly the type of person that people will want to have on a team, and that if you're lucky, you'll get on a team where everybody is actually more talented than you, and take that opportunity to learn from those more experienced people. So that's my advice.
I can add to that too. This goes for not just coding, but also entrepreneurship or selling anything, really. It's this: you want to be the cheese. You want, think of them as like a mouse looking for cheese. Everybody's looking for something. Understand them, listen to them, give them exactly what they want.
That's right.
So you got simple saying, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen more than you speak. Give them exactly what they want. Just be the cheese and give them exactly what they want.
Good advice. Cool. Great advice.
Let's see here. Okay, we got a question from Daniel Wagner. Ever since the Bitcoin futures market launched, Bitcoin has been trending down. Do you think the futures will continue to suppress the price?
Well, futures are supposed to be about price discovery, and Bitcoin has been clearly overpriced. I've been saying that for a very long time. There's no, especially BTC at this point, without being a means of exchange, having lost that really, is vastly overpriced. There's no reason why there should be a 10-to-1 difference between BCH and BTC right now. So if if a 600 or 700 price is appropriate for BCH, I think it's very conceivable that you could see BTC at that level as well. So
Cool.
I don't think that has anything necessarily to do with the futures market, although a futures market, the one thing that it does is it does help with actual price discovery. Like that's one property of it. So it's not that the futures market is suppressing the Bitcoin price. It's that the futures market, if anything, is, well, one, it's being manipulated.
Yeah.
That's the first thing, right? But the manipulation should have it fluctuating with volatility against a line, right? Because they're playing the long side against the short side, then the short side against the long side, so you want a line, and then but the price discovery is the middle of that line. The fact that it's going down says that that's actually probably that's legitimate, that line is actually trending down as it tries to discover price. So
Cool. All right, we got another question from Dr. D711. He says, from the community, what advice would you give to those who are holding BCH and lost 80% of their portfolio last month?
who are holding BCH and lost 80% of your portfolio as compared to what? Right? As compared to, this is the whole store of value thing, right? That it's like you're holding BCH. Well, first off, anyone holding, anyone who was holding BTC at the time of the fork is holding BCH, right? So if you got in when the price was below, say, $600 BTC, which it was when we started this show, then then you're up.
Yeah.
You're up. If you bought in at, well, this goes to it. If you bought in at 1,500, it's going back up to 1,500. Like there's no, unless barring some, either an entry into the market of some new player in terms of some new blockchain that is just head and shoulders above everything else, or, well, even if there's a fork of BCH, you're going to be holding both sides of the fork. So that's fine. But, barring something really crazy happening, it's going way beyond where it's at. So, it is certainly shitty if you are somebody who is spending BCH. But again, we are out of the speculative time.
Yeah.
You don't lose the value of your portfolio, or you don't make or lose anything. In other words, your capital gains don't happen until you exit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You haven't lost anything until you exit. So what I would say is this. You should be, you should be earning BCH, earning it. And then you should be spending it. And if you're earning it and spending it the same way that you do your fiat, this, for most people, happens at least in a monthly span, right? Most people spend, and we know this because I think it's something like 68% of US citizens have less than $1,000 in savings. What does that tell you? That tells you that the vast majority of people spend everything that they make in a month. They spend it that month. So that means that it's just volatility over the course of a month that matters. Earn and then spend it at the price that you earned it. And the rest of it, wait.
Yeah.
Wait. It's going back up. If what you're doing is taking fiat, I love that Rick Falkfinger, he's got a great quote about this, that they're like, oh, well, when Lambo, when am I going to cash out? When are you going to cash out, Rick? And he's like, no, I've already exchanged my bad money for good money. I'm not going to exchange it back. This is not about get rich quick. Well, it is get rich quick, but quick is like 10 years. And in that time, you want to see the price go back up? Build something. Make the network more valuable. You want to see the price go back up? Create demand. It's a limited supply. When you have a limited supply, when demand goes up, price goes up. You want to see price go up? Do something rather than sit on your ass. Do something to increase demand. Build something. Help spur on adoption. Talk to merchants. Evangelize. Start a meetup. Speaking of, Las Vegas meetup, you want to tell people about it?
Yeah. So the Bitcoin Cash for Las Vegas, Bitcoin Cash meetup for Las Vegas is coming this Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. at none other than Las Vegas Distillery, and sponsored by Bitcoin Cash Fund and Bitcoin.com, Baby Vodka, Tech Titans, and also Las Vegas Distillery as well. And it was great. Last time, everybody in the room got some Bitcoin Cash. They got to see what it's all about. They got to see the transaction. They got to understand why it's different than everything else and why it's going to, or it is, disrupting the financial and tech industry. And the last time, so for those people that were new, they got to hear a lot of very, very valuable information for people that were already in the industry. So it was almost like a mastermind. People that were skilled, experienced individuals in the blockchain industry were there. They were sharing their ideas. They were discussing things that they did. They went to Anarchapulco, and they were talking about great things that were happening there. And it was just it was really, really, really valuable. So I encourage anybody in Las Vegas to come and join us for the meetup.
Or find a meetup in your area.
Yeah.
It's seeming like, you can go back to us. It's seeming like these meetups are really a hotbed of it's seeming like the meetups are the core of the community. You know, so find one in your area. They're all over the place, and connect with people, man.
Yeah, it was great.
Take your involvement in this as greater than, I'm gonna make to the moon and shit. Like, no, dude. Take this as an opportunity, if nothing else, than a way to find like-minded people to establish relationships with.
Right. And one of the questions that was talked about at the last meetup is like, okay, I'm not a coder. I don't know really anything about how to consult or any of these things. Like, I'm just a John Q. Public when it comes to crypto. And it's like, no, you know about crypto. You know about Bitcoin Cash. You're already that much farther ahead than everybody else. Imagine if you just took that simple concept and started telling everybody and explaining it to people. Just that alone.
Well, it's just like asking every single time you're at a restaurant, do you take Bitcoin Cash?
Yeah.
Do you take cryptocurrency?
Exactly.
And they're like, no, we don't. And you know what? You may just... And it's actually happened with a few people who have been like, oh, yeah, I asked my mechanic if he took cryptocurrency, and he was like, well, we don't officially, but I'll take it. Like, oh, you got some? I have a wallet. A lot more people have it. Like, this is how, and believe me, that may be. If you're at a restaurant and you say to the owner or the manager, oh, do you take cryptocurrency? That may be just that organic you asking. They may be like, well, yeah, we've been thinking about doing that. We've actually been thinking. The fact that a person actually asked, believe me, for a business owner, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
That would be the reason for me as a business owner to be like, oh, I need to research that. If people are asking, one person might be enough. 2 or 3 asks, any business owner is going to be like, okay, I got to do this. You know?
Yeah, just look at it like this. You have extremely valuable information, and do whatever you can to pass around that information. It's gonna break the chains of the big guys. It's gonna give more freedom. It's gonna do everything about it is valuable, and it's going to increase your life and your ability to live. So
good advice, man. Good advice. What else do we got?
Cool.
Chat room, anybody who wants to ask questions, you can jump on youtube.com/VinArmani. We are in the chat room. Taking questions, taking comments.
There's a lot of hey Vin, Watching from Dubai.
Oh,
Okay.
Dubai. Nice.
Let's see. Because they're having conversations, so it's kind of hard to. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Daniel Wagner, I think another question from him.
Okay.
Can you speak about the future of CoinText?
Mm-hmm.
What are you most excited to release in terms of the product features, functionality, and that aren't currently in production?
So CoinText is, I mean, it's really just a jumping off point for us more than anything. At least for me, I think that it's a chance for us to rethink what money is and to rethink how we look at money and what the user interfaces of money can be. Up until now, the cryptocurrency user interface, there's been a pretty standard user interface. You know, it's like it's a wallet on a smartphone, QR codes, all of that. But you realize all of that is kind of arbitrary. The QR code had been around long before cryptocurrency, but it turns out to be because you have a smartphone. I was introduced to QR codes in like 2006, and there wasn't really much you could do with them. Nobody even had a smartphone. But because you have smartphone apps with the camera and everything, it works out great to be able to transmit a long, very difficult to memorize address, which is basically the reason for it. But I think a lot of that is going to change. I mean, CoinText is just the start. BitPay has integrated BIP70, which there's definitely some ways that can be used to make things a lot easier in terms of addresses and whatnot. You know, there's people like Handcash out there who are doing like near field communication. Shout out to those guys.
Yeah, that's cool.
We should be rethinking. How we look at money, and I think that with CoinText more than anything, I think that the biggest advantage to it is its ability to get somebody quickly onboarded to cryptocurrency, to introduce people. And look, if that's the first way that they saw cryptocurrency done, somebody texted me money, right? That's an interface that's been used. M-Pesa in Africa, it's like 6 billion transactions a year, all via SMS, and that's through the banks. So really, there are so many things that I want to explore with CoinText and with growing it even beyond CoinText. I think more than anything, it's looking at new interfaces, new UIs. Because CoinText is just a user interface on top of the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. It doesn't do anything that your normal wallet doesn't do. It gives you your balance. It tells you your address. You can send. What else?
Yeah.
Like in this case, you can send to a phone number, but you could also send to a Bitcoin Cash address. And we're going to integrate a BIP70, which is what BitPay uses. So you'll be able to pay on BitPay and pay on other BIP70 as BIP70 rolls out, which is a different address format.
The betting feature and things of that nature.
I mean, these are all possible. It's who knows if that's the best interface, right? There are lots of things that we want to do. Betting is one where you potentially bring additional scrutiny from the state down on you. So we would want to partner with someone who's already licensed, and we would want to take that very, very cautiously. Right now, where we're at, we're in a good place regulatorily. We have a very, very talented law firm that we have on retainer, who have been working with us in dealing with making sure that we're FinCEN compliant. We made some changes to the product to get ourselves compliant and exempt from money service business laws. We're already non-custodial. We just want to be sure. That's one of the things about being an agorist and working in what is definitely a gray market is know the law.
Yep.
Know the law better than the regulators know the law. Know it front to back, and then try to work so that you are compliant, but don't ask permission, right? So we're not going out and getting a license. We're working in a way to where we are exempt from needing a license, and there's a huge difference between those two. So there's a lot of things that we want to do, but it's not CoinText specific per se. It's creating user interfaces for specific applications that are the best user interfaces we could possibly build.
Cool. Okay, so I think this next question is coming from Connor again.
Okay.
And I think he's just adding on to the question that he...
About Craig Wright?
Yeah. He says, to clarify, are there protocol changes put forth to change economics intentional?
Whose?
Are the protocol changes put forth to change economics intentional or done by unwitting individuals who trust economic planning? I don't know.
Was he talking about BTC? Like, is
probably, I think so.
Look, people have... Well, Jordan Peterson says, always assume human stupidity before assuming organized malevolence, right? Which I think is great. Mm-hmm. This is for the most part, this is the open source community and groups of engineers. And so certain people have things that they would like to build because they find them to be interesting. It doesn't necessarily mean that because an application can be used for a particular reason, that there's organized malevolence to insert it. Now, at a certain point, there may be. Mm-hmm. Clearly, when you're talking about investments being made, no investor is going to invest in a company, especially if it's an investor who's either a venture capitalist or who has another suite of companies. Mm-hmm. They're going to want to invest in companies that have synergy with their own companies and their own goals, that are aligned with their own vision and their own goals. So, you build something that works for the banks, you should expect to have banks investing.
Yep.
You build something that is that empowers a more libertarian social order. You should expect to see libertarians investing.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it is. But usually it starts with engineers trying to solve a particular problem that interests them. It generally doesn't start the other way.
Cool. Okay, next question. Cryptomesis.
Okay.
Hey Vin, the New York Times released the surveillance footage of Stephen Paddock bringing suitcases full of guns into his hotel room. I was wondering how this fits your drone testing theory.
Well, first, do we know that it was suitcases full of guns? Mm-hmm. Suitcases, for sure. And clearly, if this was a weapons test, I mean, my theory from the beginning has always been that Stephen Paddock was a part of something bigger, and that he may or may not have known what he was bringing those guns up there for. He may have been a willing participant in what was going to be the cover, because I do believe that it was a drone test, mm-hmm. and I do believe that it was planned, whether or not Stephen Paddock was aware of the plan, mm-hmm. or whether he was just a fall guy and a patsy. I do believe that shooting from out of Mandalay Bay was the cover for, mm-hmm. much like the Lee Harvey Oswald in the book depository and the real shooters on the grassy knoll. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This is an old, tried and true method of, you have a patsy. That's how you cover mm-hmm. your tracks, right? You have the fall guy. And whether clearly Paddock probably wouldn't have participated if he thought he was the fall guy. Mm-hmm. So it could have been that he thought it was a weapons deal. He was a retired aerospace guy with mm-hmm. top secret clearance what had he been doing for a living, right? And then I made the connection with Mary Lou Danley mm-hmm. and a stewardess or airline hostess for where? For what mm-hmm. airline?
Right.
People reporting she got an airline hostess job. For what airline? Mm-hmm. And she was gone. They said she was down in Las Vegas. Well, Janet Air is in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. It requires top secret clearance. She was the girlfriend of a guy in aerospace with top secret clearance. Conceivably could have hooked her up with a job there. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we don't know what this dude was up to. Like I say, he could have thought it was an arms deal. Mm-hmm. He could have you know, it's not necessary that he had knowledge of that there was going to be the shooting. He could have, right? It could have been that he was going to participate and he was going to be the shooter.
Who knows?
Who knows? But that's so. I never at any time said that he didn't bring the guns up. You know, that's totally conceivable. That's not the crux of my theory about that.
Okay. Daniel Wagner, want to see the price go up? Question mark. Build something, do something, create demand.
That's it.
This. Yeah.
That's it.
Awesome. Matthew Shea, what are some of your favorite films?
My all-time favorite film is Fifth Element. Luc
Really?
Besson. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I mean, I was really into the Zecharia Sitchin books, like Stairway to Heaven. What were the other ones? People can say it, but it was all about like the Anunnaki, Sumerians, and stuff like that. And when that movie came out, I was like, oh yeah, because it's kind of the characters in that are kind of on that. I really thought that was a really just a truly great movie, and it had some really great performances in it, and the CG and everything was great. I mean, I've got a lot. There's some of them are kind of obscure. I like Guy Ritchie movies. There's a movie with Daniel Craig called Layer Cake, where he's a kind of an ecstasy trafficker. That is one that I absolutely love.
I got to check that out.
It's really good. It's kind of like a Guy Ritchie kind of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels type. I guess I like a lot of British films. Train Spotting was one of my favorites.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I like things that are a little out there. Most recently, I love horror films, and most recently, what's it called? Cabin in the Woods. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it.
Great. I like it's one of these films like with an interesting twist. I love movies that are sort of out there that have an interesting twist. So yeah, those are some of my favorites for sure. What about you, dude?
Oh yeah, I love. I think one of my absolute favorite movie is Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh God, dude, I love that, and so innovative.
Yeah,
of a
with
film.
The
Yeah,
cartoon
great film.
in reality.
Great movie. Great movie.
I like psychological thriller type stuff too. I love the movie, even though it was a movie where you can only really watch one time. But I love the movie Memento, where everything was.
Yeah. That's a great one.
Signs was a really good. I love the movie Signs.
M. Night Shyamalan,
because everything was connected somehow.
Yeah.
It was like you had to kind of research things and really pay attention to things. So, that's my lineup.
So that kind of goes into this is from MRJ Smith on Twitter, and it says, "Can you guys discuss who you think are the preeminent geniuses of our time? Satoshi in tech, for example, or Dr. Peterson in praxeology. What about music, science, art, athletics, etc.?" So I think people know how we feel about Satoshi and Dr. Peterson for sure. Music, science, art, athletics. You want to take a stab at who you think geniuses are in any? It could be any field.
There's a guy by the name of Santos Bonacci.
Okay.
He's probably one of my favorite. He goes by Mr. Astrotheology on YouTube, and he really connects the dots behind science and spirituality and the Bible, the writings in the Bible, metaphysics, things of that nature. In terms of, I study a lot of belief system material, and there's a guy by the name of Brent Phillips. He does Where Science Meets Spirit, and it's more metaphysics, stuff like that. Teachings into understanding the subconscious and belief systems and energy work, what many people would describe as magic, in terms of like manifesting things of that nature. So those are the two guys that I really, really look up to and study.
So for me, so let's delve into some of these other ones. I love comedy. I love stand-up comedy. I love intelligent comedy. I think especially as of late, the stuff that I've seen from him, he's always been a genius, but he's just getting even more and more so as Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Is, I think, just a cut above everything out there. Just such a genius. Music? God, there are a lot. I've been a DJ since I was a teenager, so I listen to a lot of music. But I will say, I think of our time, if I had to look at the people who are like real geniuses, The Weeknd stands out to me.
Yeah, dude.
Not just from a standpoint of basically creating what is now the most popular sound in the world in popular music, right? He created that back in like 2010. But for also sort of creating talk about creating something of value, he gave away his first 3 albums for free. For free. And there are
awesome,
3, House of Balloons, Thursday, the 3rd album. The name is escaping me right now. Somebody will put it up there. Gave away the first 3 albums for free, each one of them masterpieces, and then still, after he had given them away, Universal bought the rights to them.
Crazy.
So he gave them away and then still got signed and got paid for 3 albums that he had given away millions of copies.
Wow.
And it's just like, talk about a business model, and that's really the new business model. It's just like create something of value and put it out. But he's absolute genius. In art, Banksy.
Dude, everything about Banksy is great.
Yeah, I don't know if people have seen Exit Through the Gift Shop. If you haven't, watch it. But there's 2 art shows that are shown in there. One is Banksy's show in LA, and one is Mr. Brainwash's show in LA. I was at both of the shows where it was being filmed. And as a matter of fact, at the Mr. Brainwash show, in the documentary, my best friend that I was there actually with, that I went to the show with, is interviewed in the actual documentary itself. And he's like, oh, it's a triumph. I was like standing 2 feet away from him when that happened. So it's like, I was heavily involved in the LA street art scene, like as a aficionado, as someone who appreciated it. Made a big influence on my life, Shepard Fairey and all those guys. But yeah, Banksy is just, well, clearly. I think his art is I think he's the most expensive living artist right now, I think.
Because the art itself was pretty simple, even though it did have like different kind of psychological...
well, they're memes.
Right.
Like, he's a meme master. He was, street art is memes. Street art is memetic warfare.
And the execution, dude.
Oh.
Brilliant.
Amazing. Let's see. Art, athletics. Athletics is really, that's a hard one. That's a hard one.
I don't follow it enough.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say who's a genius and how do you determine genius? Well, no, I can tell you. Dana White and the Fertitta brothers for creating UFC, for basically single-handedly as a group of guys. So let's say Dana White, right? If you had to point at one person in athletics alive and operating right now who could be called, who I think no one would argue about their genius, you got to pick the guy who basically took something that was completely unknown. I remember watching the first UFC with Hoist Gracie in his gi, you know, just jacking up people of all these other styles. I remember watching the first UFC to take it to now where it's like, it's one of America's most popular sports. And America is about sports. You know how hard it is to create a new sport and then to own it outright? They own a sport.
That's crazy.
You feel me?
Yeah.
Like, that's... Think about that for just a second. So, like, in athletics, the genius of Dana White, and which then brings us to Joe Rogan as well, who's just in terms of independent media creators and personalities, he's in a class all his own. I mean, that goes without saying. So, yeah, I think that's good. We got any others?
Yeah, let's see. Oh, okay. OG. This is coming from OG Foundation.
Okay.
I was wondering, have you guys ever heard of the concept allodium, Freedom, personal sovereignty, owning property without an overlord seems resonant with voluntarism, but I don't hear it often.
Spell it for me.
Allodium.
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 I've never heard of it. Owning property without sort of state permission that's a natural right. The ownership of property comes before the state, and the right to own property comes before the state, which is, he might enjoy this, my book, Self-Ownership, The Foundation of Property and Morality. You can get that at selfownership.me, where I delve into these ideas, into, the state is there to take property. The state survives off the theft of property, which tells you that the property must have existed before the state, because there had to be something for them to steal, otherwise they can't exist. So, anything else? What do we got? We've got a few more. We got a few more minutes, huh? What do we got? 20 minutes. Yeah, we've got time for more questions.
Johnny, I'm going to slaughter this last name. Hegham.
Okay.
What technologies are used behind CoinText? What Bitcoin libraries do you use?
So at this point, the library that I use is one that I have been developing since about 2015. And so it's pretty custom at this point. But it is, if you're asking what language it's written in Python. It's written in Python. But yeah, it's basically a reworking of a library that I started working on back in 2015 that I've been working on. So yeah, it is not publicly available. I might open source some of it, but what I want to give a shout out to Bitbox, which is a new JavaScript library that I've been going back and forth with I believe I want to say his name is Carlos, the guy who is putting this together. Go and check it out. I believe it's at bitbox.earth, and it's a really clean Node.js library that I might actually, in the next version of CoinText, because it looks like he has all of the functionality that I have in a very, very clean package. So, and it would be good to, and perhaps he's somebody that we can, maybe even throw a little bit of funding in his direction, because I would much rather have another individual maintaining the basic code base to be able to I don't know, just to have somebody maintaining the basic code base, and then to build out that middle layer of the specific functionality that we need. But yeah, Bitbox is looking pretty good.
Cool.
So
cool. Let's see. Got a request from Mustafa.
Okay.
I didn't see the question. Can you repost the question, Mustafa? He's saying, "Hey Christian, can you please put my question across to Vin? Would really like his insight, but I don't see the question."
In the meantime,
let's see. Yeah, can you looks like they're having a conversation, and there's kind of like.
Well, if he comes back with a question, he'll come back with the.
Yeah, Mustafa, if you can repost that question, that'd be great. Hi there, question. This is from PR. Hi there, question. Hi there. This is a question for both of you. Are you familiar with Jiddu Krishnamurti's teachings? I don't know.
I don't know which spell the first one. So which Krishnamurti is this?
Jiddu Kris.
Well, yeah, the Krishnamurti I know. Because there's a lot of gurus with the name Krishnamurti. Jiddu Krishnamurti, no, I am not familiar. Are you?
No.
Okay.
OG Foundation. I'll check out your book, Vin. Thanks. Look up the definition history of Allodium for a minute.
All right,
Words
cool.
have power. Got to bring it back.
Cool.
Mustafa's gonna post his question, and I scrolled through.
See if you can find something else in the meantime. It's not waiting for that.
Doug Sibon.
Okay.
Do you plan on producing more films, Vin? Any entertainment industry in NH, New Hampshire?
In New Hampshire? Well, I mean, I'm still planning on producing content. Producing more films. That was an interesting process. I would. Well, the film he's probably referencing is Expressway to Your Skull, which is really cool if people want to check it out. I think it's available on demand on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. Just type in Expressway to Your Skull movie. And it's a really cool kind of psychological, not really a slasher film per se, but it's psychedelic. So very cool visuals. It's a cool film. I like it. And the writer and director Michael Oakham did a fantastic job. I mean, it was really just starting out a young talent who clearly was working hard. So that was fun. Would I produce another film? I mean, if the right opportunity came along. It was just in that case, my friend Julian Daly, who's the son of John Daly, who's super producer. He produced Terminator, Platoon, El Salvador, tons of movies. Gave a start to so many talented people as well. Won tons of Academy Awards. So he passed away maybe in 2007, and that was around the time that I met his son Julian. And Julian just had come to me and said, "Hey, I'm working on this project," and I actually offered to get involved and to throw some capital in the way of it, and I'm glad that I did. But would I produce some more? Possibly.
Why not?
If the right project came my way.
Ryan Smith, how do you help people deal with cognitive dissonance when you should show them the reality of statism?
Yeah, that's a hard one. You know, it's a tough pill to swallow. I think the main thing that you have to do is you got to be patient, and you can't. What I've found is first, when you're trying to show people where they have inconsistencies in their thinking, the best thing to do is to let them show themselves. So, and people will sometimes see if I get in debates, if you'll watch my debate style, or if I'm having a discussion with somebody on a topic, I almost exclusively ask questions.
Yeah, I was going to say ask questions.
Almost exclusively.
Be a mirror.
Almost exclusively ask questions. No, not leading questions, but, say your thesis, and then when they challenge it, then just ask a question about what they said.
Right, and even
walk them through their own logic.
And ask them questions like, and how do you feel about that? Hit some emotional.
Sure. I mean, I think that one of the biggest things, especially when you're dealing with statism, is because what you're trying to show them is you're trying to show them this costume idea. You're trying to show them, well, one, are you dealing with a psychopath or not? If you're not, all you have to establish is, do you think that it's good for other people, or do you want to violently restrict peaceful behavior of other people? Do you want to do that, and do you think it's moral and ethical? And then it's to show them that the state is an instrument of violence. And it's that. And then just let them sit with it. Then let them sit with it. Ask those questions. It's going to be really hard for them. Very few people have worked on themselves enough to be able to immediately say, oh yeah, I was wrong. Oh, I was wrong about what I believed, how I believed the world operated for my entire life.
Yeah, that's a hard one to swallow.
Come on, that's too much to ask from anyone. And again, the question becomes, this takes it right back to it. Which do you value more? Being right or doing the right thing? Which do you value more? Waking this person up or you getting the feeling that you've won the debate? Wake them up. Now they're awake, but they're still groggy. Right? They might not be happy about waking up.
No, they're not going to.
This is, go back to Plato's allegory of the cave. He even describes that when the person breaks free of the chains, when they get out of the torchlit cave and they climb up and they climb into the sun for the first time, it's painful. Give them some time to adjust to the light. Shine the light, but then be willing to give them some time to adjust to it. And I think what you're saying about having some real compassion.
Yeah.
And people can tell whether or not your intention
Empathy.
is to wake them up for their own betterment and because you're genuinely interested in them having a better life, or whether you're just trying to be right and win at their expense. People can sense that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And if you, the one thing too is like, don't argue with them.
no.
Just ask questions, be a mirror.
Ask questions.
Cool. Yeah, he's just toughy, eh? Question from Trons Flowy. BTC is losing merchants daily, whereas BCH is gaining new ones. BCH is focused on adoption and innovation, but masses are misled by core propaganda. How do BCH counter the misinformation?
No, the masses are not misled. The masses don't know anything. Like, that's what's important for us to realize. The masses don't see Reddit. They're not on crypto Twitter. It's important for us to step back and be objective and observers. If you're walking down the street and people are like, oh, I kind of heard of Bitcoin, or they haven't even heard of Bitcoin, they're not misled by core propaganda. So that's why for me, I'm not even participating in that debate. I think it's so silly and stupid. Let the market do what it's going to do. Who cares? Who cares? I don't care if merchants accept BTC or not. I only care if merchants accept the currency that, one, I hold, and that, two, I'm building solutions with. That's all I care about. Anything else, I don't care. My job is to just create more adoption, to bring more people onto the blockchain. But once they're there, let them decide for themselves. If anything, if I'm their first point of contact and they run across that think about that. If you're their first point of contact and they run across core propaganda, who do you think is the first person that they're going to come to be like, is this real or not? And then you can set them straight. So that makes it incumbent upon you to be somebody's first contact with the blockchain, and it should be, that's your job. Who cares? Let them spend themselves out. It's a rope-a-dope. Don't even pay attention to them. They thrive. Those trolls thrive off you answering. Look at Roger, actually answering the Bcash charges, actually getting upset about it. Became a meme. That meme.
Yeah.
It's like he doesn't do that. He doesn't give them ammunition. Don't even answer them.
Don't even answer. Don't give it energy. Okay, cool. I got Mustafa's question.
Okay, what's Mustafa's question?
So, just wanted to know, when you're bringing CoinText to UAE, there's huge remittance market over here.
I understand that. I know that there's a big remittance market back to India and a remittance market to Bangladesh and also Philippines from UAE. So I know that, along with Eastern Europe and some other places. So let's talk a little bit about the CoinText rollout. We have 54 countries that are pegged right now to roll out to. The situation is we will probably be locking the system down as we start rolling out to only be able to send to phone numbers that are in countries that we service. Just because otherwise potentially the money gets locked onto the person's phone if they don't have international texting or whatnot. And so I would just prefer that people were unable to send that way. You'll still, of course, be able to send to addresses, any address, but to phones specifically. So, the hurdle with CoinText is that we have to go through SMS gateways. And we are working with the top ones, several of them. And we do automatic routing, so you can't even tell. So, for instance, if you send money right now from the US to somebody in UK, you actually go in through one SMS gateway company and you go out through another SMS gateway company. Wow. And vice versa, right? With us doing the routing. internally. So we have 54 countries lined up now. UAE is not on that. And these SMS gateways do have individual deals with individual telcos. We can go out to almost everybody, but the problem is having the inbound, which you need. You need to be able to actually do an inbound command in order to get your money out. So even if it's just to get your private key or to get your address. So what we have is we have another list of 150 companies from 150 countries from a different company, but that we can roll out to, and UAE is on that list. Mm-hmm. But in order for us to come on board with that company, we have to have a certain level of traffic. So our goal is to roll out to those 54 countries in 2018, and then to hopefully by 2019 to have the traffic to be able to roll out to the other 150. So it's coming. I also have some other plans for potentially, I'm playing around with something that's a bit of an open source solution and still trying to work on this, that would potentially enable just an average person to throw up a cell phone with an app on it and be able to use that as a local CoinText node, like a cell phone with unlimited texting, to be able to use that as a local CoinText node that they could then advertise themselves, and for them to be able to make a percentage of the fee.
Wow.
So I am working on that to try to actually enable some ambassadors and some nodes, so Mustafa himself could go out and set this up, install the app on his phone, and then start marketing that individual phone number as a CoinText affiliate, or he could call it whatever he wanted.
That's cool.
So
Mustafa
I think
says,
we got
yes, finally.
yeah, okay. I think we got
Awesome.
time for one more question.
Okay, cool. BTC Pop Co. With CoinText's integration to BitPay invoices, will there ever be a way for BCH buyers to text payment to a number such as in TV infomercials?
I think is he asking about a short code? Maybe we use long codes. We don't use short codes. Ask the question one more time.
Sure. With CoinText's integration to BitPay invoices, will there ever be a way for BCH buyers to text payment to a number such as in TV infomercials?
Oh, yes. So this is something that I'm working on. This is, some people who follow me on Twitter have seen me talking about BIP 70. I do have a vision that it would be where you could have something that it may not be CoinText. It may be another type of an app that's maybe built on top of CoinText. We'd have to see. But the vision for our merchant solution is something that it would be kind of like buy ABCD 1 2 3. That's all you would put in. You'd see it would say, "Oh, order this, buy ABCD 1 2 3," and you would say that, and then it would basically come back and say, "Oh, buy the salad shooter for $29.95 from As Seen on TV." Confirm. And then you would confirm, and with BIP 70, your address could actually go in the
That's cool.
transfer as well. So this is why I say these new UIs, and why people would say that I'm like, or see that I'm kind of obsessed with BIP 70. It's that's one of the things that I really want to work on. It adds a layer of functionality on top of BCH that enables you to do things like that. So it's the early stages, and there's so much to be done, which is one of the reasons why, you could, like we were talking about, you could get on Code from Go is in JavaScript. You could go straight from your Code from Go course, and after those 3 weeks, you could go and start playing around with Bitbox yourself and start building these solutions out for yourself.
It's awesome.
BCC
Pop says cool, very nice, and then Heidi Bailey says, really enjoyed the show, although I knew nothing about crypto. I'm interested in learning more and would have liked to have had more topics. Will watch again.
She can go along with other people to a great sort of starting out point, which translates directly it's written for Bitcoin BTC, but translates directly to Bitcoin BCH, is you can go to activistpost.com/Bitcoin, and that is the beginner's guide to Bitcoin, and that will get you started and get you right flowing in. I would say do it. If you're into Liberty, it's definitely a place to be. Speaking of being into Liberty, Christian, since we are going to be on a little bit of a break ourselves, you're going to have a lot of time, I'm assuming, to do some more designs. I know you got some more Govern Yourself designs. I saw you had a Read 1984 shirt design.
That's a new one.
Maybe you could show some of these shirts for the people while we're on break. They can order shirts at governyourself.com, GVRNURSLF.com. Here's a Bitcoin Cash shirt. We've got the Libertarians diligently plotting to take over the world and leave you alone shirt. Make yourself great again. Bitcoin Cash in the green and in the orange. Simple economics with the Bitcoin Cash symbol. Dash. Feel the BS. The little Bernie Sanders head. Individual. I love that one. Very, very cool. So, Christian, that was great. Thanks to you, and we'll be back, I guess, beginning of May.
Okay.
In the meantime, let's think about some content to put up and show ideas, things we want to do.
Awesome.
We'll be in contact, but I'll see you all this week as we clean this studio out. So let me say goodbye to the people. I want to say thank you to everyone who came along and participated today. Thank you for the great questions. And I know that probably the chat room was on fire with conversation in there as well. We're going to be on a break. This is our spring break for the rest of the month, so I can get my move to New Hampshire done, and we can revamp the show and come back in May. We're looking forward to the break, but we're also looking forward to coming back to you guys. But we'll still be, of course, around communicating on social media. If you'd like to reach out, please go and check out CoinText.io. We're in our public beta, so you can start using it right away to transact Bitcoin Cash all over the world. I can't wait to see what people are going to do next with that platform. So we will be back in May with more shows. And until then, stay free.